Welcome. Today we're delving deeper into the sources of Vedic civilization. This is a period roughly believed to be from 1500 to 600 BCE.
Yes, and the material we have divides it into two parts. The pre-Vedic period, from approximately 1500 to 1000 BCE.
And the post-Vedic period, from 1000 to 600 BCE. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. So, let's see what special things emerge from these sources.
So, first of all, why is it called the Vedic civilization? Perhaps the answer lies in the name itself.
Yes, of course, because it was during this period that the Vedas were composed, or rather compiled. The material suggests this.
And this is where the Indo-Aryan theory comes in.
Yes, the one that says the Aryans originated in Central Asia and that these Vedic texts are believed to have been composed by these Indo-Aryans. So, is there
any evidence to support this?
Yes, isn't it? The sources reveal some interesting things. Like the Bogazgoy inscription found in Turkey.
Bogazgoy? Yes.
What's so special about it? It contains the names of 4 Vedic gods, Indra, Mitra, Varuna, and Nisatya. And it's said to date back to around 1400 BCE. So, it's quite old.
This is important, and not just the inscription itself, but perhaps the linguistic similarities as well.
Yes, of course. The literature mentions that as well. For example, the Sanskrit word, barda, means
brother, quote, yes, and
many European languages have similar words, or the counting word, sapta, means together.
Well, these similarities
suggest that these languages may have had a common source. It's believed so. However, among the sources, we also mention Bal Gangadhar Tilak's book, The Arctic Home of the Vedas. It probably offers a different perspective on the origin. So, this has been a topic of debate. I
understand. Now, let's turn to the most important part of this era, the Vedas. The literature says these are the oldest texts of this era. That's
right.
And Veda means knowledge, right?
Yes, absolutely knowledge. And the interesting thing is that the way they are viewed is that they are called uppolice. What does
uppolice mean?
Meaning, they were not created by any human. In a way, they are considered divine or eternal truth. Oh, and they are also called shruti? Yes, shruti means what is heard. Again, this knowledge is received, not created. It is given by God. They have also been compared to the Jain Vesta, which is a Zoroastrian text.
So, not just composed, but heard, not human created. This means that their authority in society must have been very strong.
Absolutely.
Okay, so, these Vedas are not just a single book, they have many parts.
Yes, absolutely. They are a complete collection that was created over time, and the material explains their structure very well. It also shows the evolution of knowledge.
How?
Look, first of all, there are the Samhitas. These are basically mantras, hymns, used in yagyas.
That means it started with mantras and their recitation.
Yes, we can say that. Then come the Brahmanical texts. These explain the mantras, but the emphasis is more on rituals. How to perform a yajna? Why should one perform one? What are its rules?
Well, the entire process of the yajna and its significance are, in a way, like manuals for performing yajnas.
Yes, absolutely. Guidebooks for performing yajnas. Next come the Aranyakas.
Aranyakas. Aranya means forest?
Yes, forest. So, these texts are associated with those who probably lived in forests, away from society, ascetics, sages, etc. Their focus is more on mysticism and philosophical ideas than on rituals. The emphasis is more on the symbolic meaning of yagyas.
Gradually, there's a shift from external rituals to internal contemplation.
Finally, come the Upanishads. They're
also called Vedanta, the end of the Vedas.
Absolutely. And the name is very apt, because here the focus shifts entirely to philosophy and spiritual knowledge. What is the soul? What is Brahman? How did this world come into being? What is knowledge? Deep questions. Yes, much literature suggests that there are traditionally 108 Upanishads. But 10 are considered the main ones. This is indeed a major step away from ritualism and toward pure knowledge and metaphysics.
So, overall, these sources give us a very layered picture of the Vedic period. A long period, a theory with connections to Central Asia, some evidence for it, and most importantly, the entire structure of the Vedas. Yes, which is not just a text, but a journey, starting from mantras and yagnas, to the deepest questions of existence.
Absolutely. And if we look at the bigger picture, it is clear that this period and these texts lay the foundation for subsequent Indian philosophy, religion, and culture. This journey of knowledge, from external to internal exploration, influences almost every subsequent thought. That's
right. Understanding how knowledge changed is fascinating in itself. So, I'll leave one last question for the listeners. The literature states that the Upanishads are called Vedanta, the end of the Vedas, and contain philosophical and spiritual knowledge. So, consider why the final section of these foundational texts, rather than simply focusing on external rituals, raises such profound questions about the nature of existence, consciousness, and knowledge. Was this truly the end of a journey, or is it the beginning of a completely new, more profound, introspective exploration?
Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we have some notes on ancient Indian knowledge. Yes, specifically on the Vedas. So, let's examine what these Vedas are.
Absolutely. Look, these sources we have speak of the four main Vedas, and they are considered the foundation of Indian thought and culture. Right?
Yes, the foundation. These texts are thousands of years old, and they offer a glimpse into the customs, philosophy, and society of that time. Quite fascinating.
Yes, where do we begin? The oldest is probably the Rig Veda. It's quite extensive. 10 mandalas and 1028 hymns, right? 10 mandalas, 1028 hymns or hymns. It's filled with praises to gods like Indra, Agni, and Soma. This represents the early Vedic period.
And the famous Gayatri mantra also comes from here. Probably from the third mandala, to be
exact. Sage Vishwamitra composed it. And another interesting thing in the notes. The Purusha Sukta of the 10th mandala mentions the origin of the Varna system.
Oh, okay. I mean, social roles were described as divine in a way.
Yes, something like that. It shows how social structure was linked to religion. And yes, the priests who recited its mantras were called Hatras, and the Upanishads also have their Ken and Chandogya.
Okay, after the Rig Veda, the Samaveda notes say, it focuses on melodies and singing. Something musical.
Yes, absolutely. The Samaveda is essentially a selection of mantras from the Rig Veda, which were sung during certain yagnas, especially the Soma Yagna. The priests who sang these mantras were called Udgatas. So, along with the words, the melody and rhythm were also important. This is definitely an important aspect of the Vedic tradition. Sound pronunciation and performance.
Okay, then comes the Yajurveda. According to the notes, it contains the rituals of yajna, meaning mantras, and it is divided into two parts, Shukla and Krishna. Yes, the
entire Yajurveda is based on the ritual process of yajna. That is why it is called the Veda of rituals. And this division into Shukla, white, and Krishna, black, is actually the different textual traditions and interpretations of these yajna sutras.
And associated with it is the Shatapatha Brahmana and the very important Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, isn't it?
Absolutely. The Shatapatha Brahmana is a very extensive prose commentary, and the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad proved to be a milestone for later Indian philosophy, especially in its discussions of the soul and Brahman.
Now let's come to the Atharva Veda. The notes say it is the newest and contains witchcraft, herbal remedies, mantras, etc. It seems quite different.
Yes, it is a little different. The Atharva Veda reflects more the lives of ordinary people, their everyday concerns. For example, there were mantras and rituals for health, safety, and longevity. Its priests were called Brahmas, who oversaw the yagnas. This
meant it was more practical, connected to everyday life.
Yes, we can say that. But that's not to say it lacked deep philosophy. It certainly did. This shows that Vedic thought had both aspects, lofty philosophical ideas and the needs of everyday life.
And connected to this are the two Upanishads, the Mundukopanishad, from which Satyameva Jayate was taken. Yes, our national motto. And the Maha Upanishad, which includes the phrase Vasudeva Kutumbakam, meaning, the whole world is one family. This idea is present. Wow, it still feels so relevant today.
Absolutely. These ideas have had a profound impact on our culture. This shows how the Atharva Veda combined lofty thinking with folk traditions.
So, how was all this knowledge, the Vedas, and the Upanishads understood? The notes also mention certain philosophies, Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, and even the Vedangas. Vedangas mean parts of the Vedas. I
guess that's right. The Vedangas, parts of the Vedas, are the philosophies of Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Mimamsa, and Vedanta. These are all ways of understanding, interpreting, and organizing this Vedic knowledge. Each philosophy explores questions of truth, knowledge, and liberation in its own way.
And what did the Vedangas do?
Yes, the Vedangas were tools. Education, for correct pronunciation; grammar, for understanding the structure of language; nirukta, for understanding the meaning of words and their origins; meter, the meter of mantras; kalpa, for performing yagnas; and astrology, for determining the correct time. Without these, it was impossible to properly understand the Vedas and perform yagnas.
Well, they were, in a way, the keys to language and ritual.
Absolutely.
So, if we sum it up, we looked at all 4 Vedas based on these sources: the hymns of the Rig Veda, the music of the Samaveda, the sacrificial rituals of the Yajurveda, and then the folk customs and philosophy of the Atharva Veda.
Yes. And these sources demonstrate that the Vedas aren't a single book. They're a body of knowledge accumulated over centuries, with many layers. From the earliest prayers to the later, complex philosophies and social norms, everything is contained within. It paints a very complex picture of ancient India.
Absolutely. Well, as we leave, a question comes to mind. The notes name the specific priests for each Veda: Pothri, Yugata, and Advaryu. Although the names aren't mentioned here, they were associated with the Yajurveda and Brahma. Have you ever wondered how the specialized expertise of these different priests might have changed the way this knowledge was preserved and perhaps explained from generation to generation? It's something to ponder. Their roles must have profoundly impacted the transmission and interpretation of knowledge. Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're delving into the depths of the Vedic period of ancient India. We have some notes and sources that provide a glimpse into the pre-Vedic, or Rig Vedic, period, and then the post-Vedic period.
Absolutely, and our goal is to extract the essential insights from these sources. This means understanding how society, politics, religion, and the way of life flourished and changed during those times. Let's examine the distinctive features of these eras.
So, let's start with the Rig Vedic period, which is believed to date from approximately 1800 to 1000 BCE.
Yes, of course, and the Rig Veda is the greatest treasure of its information. In fact, some of its manuscripts are even included in UNESCO's Memory of the World Register. So, where did these people settle? The Sapta Sindhu region? Yes, Sapta Sindhu means the Indus and its tributaries, the Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Beas, Sutlej, and the mythical Saraswati. Among the mountains, the Himalayas and the Hindu Kush are also mentioned. The
geography seems to be largely pastoral. That's
right. They were largely pastoralists. This was linked to their way of life. So, what was society like at that time? I've heard it was patriarchal, but the caste system wasn't as firmly established. Yes, society was certainly patriarchal, but the caste system was based on work, not birth. This meant people could change their occupations.
social customs and
Customs didn't include child marriage, and widow remarriage was permitted, a practice known as niyoga. Yes, the cow held a very high status. It was called a ganya, meaning anything that shouldn't be killed was a very important part of their property.
understand. The king ran the government, and
Things like a sabha, assembly committee, were a monarchy. The king was sometimes called Gopati, the lord of cattle, meaning the owner of cattle, which shows how important animal husbandry was. Yes, there was a sabha, assembly committee, to assist the king, probably consisting of elders or special people, and a samiti, committee, which included ordinary people. There's also mention of a vadat, a committee, probably for religious purposes. There were officials like the senapati, the chief of the army, the purohit, the priest, and the gramini, the village head, all of them. And the gifts people voluntarily gave to the king were called bali, a bali.
Bali, okay.
And there's also mention of the Disharaja War in the Rig Veda, right?
Yes, the famous Disharaja War. The war between 10 kings, fought on the banks of the Ravi River, also known as Purushani.
Okay, now let's turn to religion. Nature was worshipped extensively.
Yes, absolutely. Nature worship was central. Indra was the most important deity. He is also called Purandar, meaning destroyer of fortresses.
Purandar perhaps alludes to the conflicts of that era. It's quite possible. Then there was Agni, who was considered the link between gods and humans. Besides him, There were other deities like Prithvi, Soma, Vayu, and Rudra. Another interesting thing is that there's a hymn in the Rig Veda that reads like a dialogue between the sage Vishwamitra and the two rivers, the Vyas and the Sutlej. It's an
amazing dialogue with the rivers. So, that was roughly the Rig Vedic period. Now let's move on to the later Vedic period, around 1000 to 600 BCE. Things began to change significantly from here, right?
Absolutely. A major turning point occurred here. The most significant change was the use of iron, which they called Krishna Yasa or Shyama Yasa. Iron. What difference did it make? A huge difference. Iron tools made it easier to clear forests. Deep plowing became possible, and agriculture expanded. The Aryans moved eastward, reaching the Ganges and Yamuna basins and beyond.
So, the basis of the economy shifted from animal husbandry to agriculture.
Yes, absolutely. The economy became more agricultural. Crops like rice and variegate became important. It is said that even King Janak plowed the land, meaning the importance of agriculture increased.
And what impact did this change have on society? The caste system. The
impact was profound. The caste system was now based on birth and became very rigid. The divisions into Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra became firm. The dominance of Kshatriyas, in particular, increased as the importance of land and power increased. And the status of women also changed. Yes, the status of women declined. They were no longer allowed to participate in institutions like the Sabha and Samiti. The Gotra system also began around this time, further regulating marital relations.
Yes, the Gotra system, and the division of life into 4 ashramas, eternal stages. Yes.
Life was divided into 4 ashramas: Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. This was considered an ideal system.
Marriage rules also seem to have expanded considerably. Those 8 types of marriages.
Yes, that's interesting. There's mention of 8 types of marriages: Brahma marriage, Devya marriage, Arsha, and Prajapatiya, all considered good. Then there were Gandharva marriages, meaning love marriages. There were also some invalid ones, like Asura marriages, where the bride was bought, Rakshasa marriages, where the bride was abducted, and Pasacha marriages. Oh my
God, so much diversity. Yes, this shows the complexity of society and the changing rules. There's also mention of annuloma and pratuloma marriages. These social changes were truly profound. Politics must have changed as well.
Definitely. Kingdoms grew in size. Kings became more powerful. Major Mahajanapadas like Kuru and Panchala were formed. Capitals like Hastinapur emerged. The Mahabharata is also believed to have occurred around this time. Institutions like the Sabha and Samiti existed, but their control over the king may have diminished. Briefly, is there anything else important that these sources reveal? There are other things as well. For example, the 4 goals of life were considered: Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha.
Another name for Valmiki, the author of the Ramayana, was Ratnakara. The word Kalpa is associated with rituals, and the sage Vyasa is believed to have compiled the Puranas and the Mahabharata. A
lot of information. So, overall, we saw how the simple, mostly pastoral, life of the Rig Vedic period transformed into a more complex, agricultural society during the later Vedic period.
Yes, and the expansion of iron cultivation and the eastward movement were major factors in this.
Society became more fragmented. Politics became more centralized. Absolutely. So, these changes were quite significant. And this leaves us with one final question, perhaps to leave with our listeners: how technologies like iron and geographical expansion, meaning the increase in land, not only changed the structure of society but also how and to what extent they profoundly affected power dynamics and religious thinking, and whether any traces of that remain today. It's worth pondering.